The text message arrived during my father's funeral reception, while Aunt Martha was still dabbing her eyes with tissue. I glanced at my phone and read Brittany's words. I gave your dog to a shelter. He shed too much. I stared at the screen, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Duke, my 3-year-old rescue mutt who'd been with me through Dad's cancer, through sleepless nights, through everything, was gone. Just like that. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Jackson, honey, are you okay? Aunt Martha touched my arm, but I was already standing, pocketing my phone. I have to go, I said, not bothering to explain. The funeral home's beige walls suddenly felt suffocating. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the Riverside Animal Shelter parking lot, my hands gripping the steering wheel tight enough to leave marks. The building looked exactly like what it was, a place where unwanted things went to disappear. Inside, a tired-looking woman behind the counter barely looked up. Help you? Someone brought in my dog today, German Shepherd mix, brown and black, name's Duke. She typed something into her computer, frowning. Oh, that one. Her expression shifted. I'm sorry, sir, but that animal was marked as aggressive. He's scheduled for... Aggressive? The word came out sharper than I intended. Duke's never been aggressive in his life. The woman who brought him in said he'd bitten her boyfriend. She filled out all the paperwork. The clerk's voice carried that practiced sympathy of someone who'd delivered bad news before. My phone buzzed. Another text from Brittany. Don't be dramatic. Trevor's allergic anyway. Trevor. Of course. I need to see that paperwork, I said, pulling out my wallet. And I need to see my dog. Now. The woman hesitated, then called for her supervisor, a gruff man in his 60s with paint-stained fingers and suspicious eyes. You Jackson Rayner? He asked, looking me up and down. That's right. Your girlfriend's a real piece of work, you know that? He grabbed a clipboard from behind the counter. Dog's been whimpering since she left him. Tail between his legs, won't eat. That's not aggressive behavior. Relief flooded through me as he led me to the kennels. Duke pressed against the chain link when he saw me, his whole body wiggling with joy. No barking, no snarling. Just pure happiness. Aggressive, my ass, the old man muttered, unlocking the gate. You can take him, but you'll need to sign these forms. And son? He handed me the leash. That woman lied on official documents. Might want to remember that. Driving home with Duke's head hanging out the passenger window, I felt something shift inside me. The grief from Dad's funeral was still there, but underneath it was something harder. Something that had been building for months as Brittany complained about everything. My job, my house, my dog, my friends. The house looked the same from the outside, but I could feel the difference the moment I unlocked the door. Brittany's designer purse sat on the kitchen counter next to a half-empty wine glass and her laptop, still open to Instagram. I scrolled through her recent posts. There it was, a photo of her looking sad and beautiful, captioned, "Sometimes you have to make hard choices for your health. Some people just don't understand allergies." Self-care, toxic masculinity, shocked dog hair. The comments were exactly what she'd wanted. Her friend Marcy had written, "You're so brave, babe. He never deserved you anyway." Trevor had liked the post. I closed the laptop and looked around the house. My house, the one I'd inherited from Dad, the one Brittany had been redecorating without asking. Her clothes were scattered across the bedroom floor. Her makeup covered the bathroom counter. Her presence had spread through every room like a stain. But she wasn't on the lease. She'd never paid rent, never contributed to utilities. Legally, she was just a guest who'd overstayed her welcome. I spent the next hour packing her things into garbage bags, not to be cruel, but because I didn't own enough suitcases. Her designer clothes, her expensive skincare products, her collection of self-help books about manifesting abundance. All of it went into black plastic bags that I lined up by the front door. Then I changed the locks. Duke watched from his bed in the corner, his tail thumping against the floor every time I looked at him. He didn't know how close he'd come to dying today. He just knew he was home. My phone started ringing around 8 o'clock. Brittany's name flashed on the screen, but I let it go to voicemail. Then again and again. Finally, I answered. "Jackson, what the hell is wrong with you?" Her voice was sharp, angry. "I can't get into the house." "That's because you don't live here anymore." "Don't be ridiculous. We need to talk about this like adults." Adults don't steal other people's dogs and lie to animal control officers. There was a pause. "I didn't steal anything. I made a decision for both of us. Without asking me. About my dog. while I was at my father's funeral. You're being dramatic. Trevor and I will be there in 20 minutes. The line went silent. I looked at Duke, who was watching me with those intelligent brown eyes. Well, boy, looks like we're having company. They arrived in Trevor's BMW, music thumping loud enough to wake the neighbors. I watched from the front window as Brittany climbed out, her face set in that expression I knew well, the one that said she expected to get her way through sheer force of personality. Trevor followed behind her, all 6 feet of manufactured confidence in his designer jeans and polo shirt. He worked in real estate, drove a car that cost more than I made in a year, and had the kind of smile that made you want to check your wallet. I opened the door before they could knock. Your stuff's right there, I said, gesturing to the bags. Everything should be accounted for. Brittany stared at the garbage bags like I'd slapped her. You can't be serious. Absolutely serious. Jackson, come on, man. Trevor stepped forward, hands raised in a peacekeeping gesture. Let's all just calm down and talk this through. Brittany made a mistake, but... A mistake? I looked at him. Really looked at him. She drove my dog to an animal shelter and lied on the intake forms. In this state, that's theft of property and filing a false report. Both misdemeanors. Trevor's smile faltered. Nobody's pressing charges over a dog. You'd be surprised. Brittany pushed past both of us, trying to get into the house, but I stepped sideways to block her path. Move, Jackson. No. This is my home, too. Actually, it's not. I pulled a folded paper from my back pocket. 30-day notice to quit. You're not on the lease, you don't pay rent, and you don't have tenant rights. I checked with a lawyer this afternoon. It was a lie. I'd looked it up online, but it sounded official enough to make Trevor take a step back. You can't just throw me out. Brittany's voice was rising, getting shrill. I can, and I am. You have 30 days to find somewhere else to live, but you can't stay here tonight. Not after what you did. What I did? I tried to solve a problem. Your dog sheds everywhere, Trevor's allergic, and you never listen to me about anything. Trevor doesn't live here. Trevor's allergies aren't my problem. They will be when we move in together. The words hung in the air between us. Brittany realized what she'd said a second too late, her eyes widening. Ah, I said quietly. There it is. Trevor had the decency to look embarrassed. Jackson, it's not what? Not what it sounds like? Not the reason she got rid of my dog? Not the reason she's been picking fights for the past month? I looked at Brittany, really looked at her, the woman I'd lived with for 2 years, who'd cried at my father's bedside, who'd promised to be there for me during the hardest time of my life. You know what the funny thing is? I said. I would have understood if you'd just been honest. If you'd said you wanted to move on, wanted something different. I would have been hurt, but I would have understood. Jackson, but you couldn't even do that. You had to make me the villain. Had to make it my fault somehow. Had to eliminate my dog to make your point. I didn't eliminate him. You tried to. Brittany's face was flushed now, angry tears starting to form. You're being impossible. Trevor, do something. Trevor looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Maybe we should just take the bags and go, Britt. Work this out tomorrow when everyone's calmer. No, she spun around to face me again. I'm not letting you destroy my life over some stupid animal. Your life? The laugh that came out of me was harsh, bitter. Lady, you destroyed your own life the moment you decided my dog was disposable. I stepped back and started to close the door. 30 days, Brittany. Find somewhere else to be. This isn't over, she shouted as the door clicked shut. Through the window, I watched Trevor load the garbage bags into his BMW while Brittany stood on the sidewalk, talking rapidly into her phone, probably calling Marcy or her mother or whoever would listen to her version of events. Duke padded over and sat beside me, his warm weight against my leg. I scratched behind his ears and felt some of the tension leave my shoulders. Just you and me now, boy, I said. But I was wrong. It was just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Most were from Brittany, ranging from apologetic to furious to threatening. A few were from mutual friends who'd apparently gotten her side of the story first. The worst was from my buddy Mike, who I'd known since high school. Dude, throwing Brittany out over a dog, that's cold, even for you. I stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. Over the next week, the narrative crystallized. According to Brittany's version, spread through social media, mutual friends, and anyone who would listen, I was a controlling, unstable man who'd kicked out his grieving girlfriend over a minor disagreement about pet ownership. She was the victim, I was the villain, and Duke was just a prop in my campaign of emotional abuse. The evidence was carefully curated. Photos of her looking sad and beautiful, Screenshots of my threatening texts, which were actually just legal notices about her belongings. Testimonials from friends about how worried they'd been about her. Trevor played his part perfectly, the concerned new boyfriend who was just trying to help a woman escape a toxic situation. It was masterfully done. I had to admire the craftsmanship. My phone rang less frequently, invitations dried up, people I'd known for years started crossing the street when they saw me coming. The only exception was Eddie, my coworker at the garage. He listened to my side of the story without judgment, nodded in the right places, and said what I needed to hear. Some people just ain't worth the air they breathe. 3 weeks after the confrontation, I ran into Mike and his wife Sarah at the grocery store. They were in the produce section, debating avocados, when Mike spotted me. "Jackson." His voice was careful, neutral. "Mike, Sarah." Sarah wouldn't meet my eyes. She busied herself with inspecting tomatoes while Mike and I stood there in awkward silence. Finally, Mike spoke. "Look, man, I don't want to get in the middle of this, but what you did to Brittany..." "What I did to Brittany? Come on. Throwing her out like that right after your dad's funeral. She was grieving, too." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Did she tell you what she did to Duke?" "She said you guys had a disagreement about the dog. That's not a reason to..." "She drove him to an animal shelter while I was at my father's funeral. She lied on the intake forms and told them he was aggressive so they'd put him down faster." Mike's expression didn't change. "That's not what she said. I have the paperwork." "Jackson, I know you're hurting, but making up stories about..." "Making up stories?" The words came out louder than I'd intended. Other shoppers were starting to stare. Sarah finally looked up from her tomatoes. "Maybe we should just..." "No, Sarah, I want to hear this. I want to hear Mike explain how I made up official animal control documents." Mike's face was flushed now. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but Brittany showed us the texts you sent her. The threats, What threats?" "Don't play dumb. The stuff about ruining her life, making her pay. That's not okay, man." I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my message history with Brittany. Legal notices about her belongings. Information about tenant rights. Nothing that could remotely be considered a threat. "Show me," I said, holding out the phone. Mike didn't take it. "I'm not getting dragged into your drama." "It's not drama, Mike. It's the truth." "Your truth, maybe." The words hit harder than I'd expected. This was Mike, my best man at my almost wedding 5 years ago. The guy who'd helped me move furniture when Dad got sick, who'd been at the funeral 3 weeks ago offering condolences and support. Now he was looking at me like I was a stranger, like I was dangerous. "You know what?" I said, pocketing my phone. "Forget it." I started to walk away, but Mike called after me. "Jackson, wait. Look, if you want to work this out, maybe we could all sit down and..." "Work what out? The fact that my girlfriend tried to eliminate my dog, or the fact that my friends won't believe me when I tell them about it?" "Nobody tried to eliminate anything. You're being paranoid." Paranoid. The word echoed in my head as I walked to my truck, Duke waiting patiently in the passenger seat. I sat there for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, watching Mike and Sarah through the store window. They were talking animatedly, probably discussing what a close call they just had with unstable, paranoid Jackson. That night, I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I created a fake Instagram account and started following Brittany's friends, Trevor's friends, people in their social circle. What I found was a carefully constructed narrative. Photos of Brittany looking brave and resilient, Trevor being supportive and caring, comments from friends about how much happier she seemed, how glad they were that she'd escaped such a toxic situation. And then I found the smoking gun. It was a video on Marcy's Instagram story, posted the night after our confrontation. Brittany and Trevor at some upscale bar, laughing and drinking expensive cocktails. "To new beginnings," Brittany said, raising her glass to the camera. "And getting rid of that mangy mutt," Trevor added, and they both dissolved into laughter. The video was only visible for 24 hours, but I'd screenshot it. Proof that this had all been planned, that Duke's close call was just a punchline to them. I stared at the image for a long time, feeling something shift inside me. The grief and confusion of the past few weeks crystallized into something harder, clearer. They wanted to play games? Fine. I knew how to play games too. The plan came together slowly, carefully. I wasn't going to do anything illegal or dangerous. I wasn't going to threaten anyone or damage property. I was just going to tell the truth, loudly, publicly, and with evidence. First, I made copies of everything. The animal shelter intake forms with Brittany's lies, the screenshots of Trevor's Instagram comments, the video of them celebrating Duke's close call. Then I waited for the perfect opportunity. It came 2 weeks later at the annual Riverside Community Festival. The whole town would be there, including all the mutual friends who'd taken Brittany's side. I arrived early, Duke on his leash beside me. We set up near the main pavilion, where the live music was playing and the food trucks were lined up. Duke was in his element, tail wagging as kids came over to pet him. He posed for selfies, played gentle tug-of-war with a toddler's toy, and generally demonstrated exactly how aggressive he was. "What a sweet dog," one woman said, scratching behind his ears. "What's his name?" "Duke," I said. "He's a rescue. Almost got put down a few weeks ago because someone lied about him being dangerous." "Oh no! What happened?" I told her the story. Not the dramatic version, not the emotional version, just the facts. The woman's expression grew more horrified with each detail. "That's terrible. Who would do something like that?" Before I could answer, I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Jackson, what are you doing here?" I turned around. Brittany stood there with Trevor and Marcy, all three of them looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. "Enjoying the festival?" I said calmly. "Duke loves meeting new people." "You shouldn't be here," Brittany said, her voice tight. "It's a public event." "You're harassing me." The woman who'd been petting Duke looked confused. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I said. "This is Brittany, the woman I was telling you about, the one who tried to have Duke put down." Brittany's face went white, then red. "That's not... You're lying." "Am I?" I pulled out my phone and showed the woman the animal shelter paperwork. These are the intake forms she filled out. See where it says aggressive behavior and bit owner's boyfriend? All lies. More people were gathering now, drawn by the raised voices and the drama. I recognized several faces, Mike and Sarah, other mutual friends, neighbors, co-workers. "You can't prove any of that," Brittany said, but her voice was shaking. "Actually, I can." I switched to the screenshot of Trevor's Instagram video. This is from the night after she abandoned Duke at the shelter. Listen to what they're celebrating. I held up the phone and played the audio. "To new beginnings and getting rid of that mangy mutt." The crowd's reaction was immediate and visceral. Gasps, angry mutters, people looking at Brittany and Trevor with disgust. "That's taken out of context," Trevor said, but he was backing away, pulling Brittany with him. "What context makes celebrating a dog's passing okay?" someone in the crowd called out. "We weren't celebrating," Brittany started, but Marcy grabbed her arm. "We should go," Marcy said urgently. But it was too late. The crowd had turned, and phones were coming out. People were taking pictures, recording videos, posting to social media in real time. "Is this the woman who lied to animal control?" someone asked. "She said the dog was aggressive? Look at him. He's a sweetheart." Duke, oblivious to the drama swirling around him, was accepting belly rubs from a group of teenagers. Brittany made one last desperate attempt to control the narrative. "You don't understand. Jackson is unstable. He's been stalking me, threatening me." Show us the threats," I said calmly. "What?" "You told Mike I'd been sending you threatening messages. Show everyone what I threatened you with." Brittany fumbled for her phone, but her hands were shaking. The crowd waited, watching her struggle to find evidence that didn't exist. They're on my other phone," she said weakly. "Your other phone?" "The police have it. For evidence." "Really? Which police department? I'd love to give them my side of the story." Brittany's face crumpled. She knew she was caught, knew the lie was too big to maintain. "Come on," Trevor said, grabbing her hand. "We don't have to listen to this." They pushed through the crowd, Marcy trailing behind them, all three looking like they were fleeing a crime scene. The crowd watched them go, then turned back to me and Duke. "That was intense," someone said. "Poor dog," said another. "Thank God you got him back." Mike appeared at my elbow, looking sheepish. "Jackson, man, I owe you an apology." "Yeah," I said, not looking at him. "You do?" "I should have listened to your side." "Yes, you should have." Mike shifted uncomfortably. "So, we're good?" I looked at him for a long moment. This was the part where I was supposed to forgive him, where we shook hands and went back to being friends like nothing had happened. But something had happened. When I'd needed him to believe me, he'd chosen Brittany's lies instead. When I'd offered him proof, he'd refused to look at it. "No, Mike," I said quietly. "We're not good." I clipped Duke's leash back on and walked away, leaving Mike standing there in the crowd. The aftermath was swift and brutal. By the next morning, the video of Brittany's meltdown had gone viral on local social media. The screenshots of Trevor's celebration were everywhere. The animal shelter intake forms had been shared hundreds of times. Brittany's carefully constructed narrative collapsed overnight. The friends who'd supported her began distancing themselves. The social media posts defending her disappeared. Trevor's real estate business took a hit when potential clients started recognizing him as that guy who celebrated almost eliminating a dog. His BMW, parked outside the office, got egged twice in 1 week. Marcy tried to spin the story, posting a long Instagram rant about toxic masculinity and social media witch hunts, but the comments section tore her apart. As for me, I went back to work, went home to my house, and played fetch with Duke in the backyard. The friends who'd abandoned me stayed gone, but I found I didn't miss them as much as I'd expected. Eddie stopped by one evening with a 6-pack of beer and a grin. "Saw the video," he said, settling into one of my porch chairs. "That was beautiful, man. Absolutely beautiful. Just told the truth. Sometimes that's the most dangerous thing you can do." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Duke chase fireflies in the gathering dusk. "You hear Brittany moved back in with her mother?" Eddie said eventually. "Can't say I'm surprised." Trevor's trying to transfer to his company's office in Portland. Apparently business has been slow lately. I didn't respond, but I felt a satisfied smile tug at the corner of my mouth. "You know what the best part is?" Eddie continued. "She thought she was so smart, playing all those games. Never occurred to her that you might be smarter." "I'm not smarter," I said. "I just had the truth on my side." "Same thing in the end?" Duke trotted over and laid his head on my lap, panting happily. I scratched behind his ears and felt something settle in my chest. Not quite peace, but close to it. Brittany had tried to destroy me, to turn my friends against me, to eliminate my dog out of spite. She'd almost succeeded. But in the end, the truth was stronger than her lies. Justice was sweeter than revenge. And Duke was still here, warm and alive and happy, which was all that really mattered.